The World of Light. That was so exciting when it was first announced. A new story mode, all different kinds of challenges and bosses, and all our favorite characters dying. Hell yeah. The mode's quality, it depends on who you talk to, but you can't deny when it was announced it was exciting. Although, I feel like almost the day it was announced, people start asking the real question, is Kirby really the only one who could survive? Well, you could just say, oh, Sakurai just wanted to make the game epic, or oh, it's for plot convenience, but where's the fun in that? And frankly, going through all of them do have pretty good chances of survival. So that's what I want to talk about today, which characters could potentially survive the World of Light if in the right circumstances. Before I go into the different plans of escape, let's talk about Galeem for a second. Galeem's beads of light, they cannot be attacked nor destroyed, homes in on players, are capable of terraforming the ground, bypasses camouflage, can be dodged, although new ones will swiftly take their place, and I assume as a master of light, these beams are shot at the speed of light. No form of protection such as armor or being in a vehicle can save you. Once you're hit, you're done. As for the escapees themselves, they have any and all equipment from their games at their disposal. Magic and ESP related shields won't work against it, but oddly enough, Link's Hylian shield held off 3 of those, so physical shields can be used for protection. Given that everyone's here, it can be applied that 2 or more characters may work together on escaping. And finally, just to give the benefit of the doubt, all characters are fully aware on what will happen, and given there is still the untouched Darkened Land once Kirby lands, I'll imply there is some untouched land outside of Galeem's universe which characters can escape to if given the chance. Also, spiriters and characters that are spirits won't be considered too many and too messy to include. In total, I've thought of 6 possible ways that a fighter could escape. While it doesn't ensure everyone's safety, it does ensure that a couple more people can get away. And just to get this out of the way, one last thing I want to mention is the 7th option of killing Galeem. I thought about putting this here, but I decided against it since only one fighter has been able to do it on their own, and considering it's done by the guy who's known for casting illusions and opening doors to other dimensions, I'm not opening that can of worms. But anyways, I'm rambling on. Let's move on to the most straightforward option of getting away. In a life or death scenario, it's basic instinct to do one of 3 things: fight, freeze, or in this case, flight, or running away. Thankfully to survive this method, it's pretty straightforward. Just be faster than the beams themselves, as well as being fast enough to dodge oncoming beams. Assuming that the beams are light speed, that's primarily what we're looking for, running and or flying at the speed of light consistently. However, one thing to mention is that lightspeed reaction feats are not the same as running faster than light. I'll look more into those later, but here we're looking specifically for characters that can break the speed of light consistency enough to outrun the beams of death. While this is the most simple way, very few fighters can get away with this method. Like I said before, these beams presumably travel at the speed of light. Only characters I can see getting away with this method include Sonic and Mythra, who can run at these speeds, and Meta Knight and Ridley, who can use their wings to help fly. All of them can consistently bypass the speed of light for periods of time. That's not much help. Granted, you could make the argument Sonic was caught despite him running, but for starters, Sonic would need time to reach full speed like any other vehicle or speedy character. The argument could be made he slowed down to help Pikachu, and frankly, Sonic's speed is very inconsistent depending on the timeline in the game. Some cases he can't outrun a black hole, others say he's hypersonic. Sometimes it's incalculable, but thankfully Supersonic can go faster than light either way, so ha. While you could make the argument that they would catch up either way, Kirby's Warp Star can go faster than light, and that consistently outran the beams for a long time. And also, there are a bunch of characters who, while fast, cannot reach these speeds. Keep in mind there's a difference between lightning fast and light speed. So characters like Pikachu and Pichu can't make it for this very reason. And despite the Blue Falcon racing the creators of the universe, his vehicle only tops at 1600 km per hour. There is also the option to slow down or stop time altogether with Bayonetta or Mega Man in that order, but they're used in limited supplies and don't have the speed to get away once their abilities have worn off. So, while it is the easiest method to go with, it's also the one with the most casualties, and the argument could be made that the untouched Dark Land could be swallowed by the attack. So overall, this method isn't likely the best decision, but bear in mind it's primarily based on the characters remaining on Earth. So let's think outside the box. Or, in this case,
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
This sort of plays into the running away option, but I'd probably say this is the more logical, more people can use this method, and is overall the much safer method. While it depends on Galeem leaving part of the universe alone as well, fight alone is generally a lot faster and gives a lot more options to dodge or get away. To give you some context, to get into orbit, a rocket needs to go 28,324 kilometers per hour and takes roughly 8.5 minutes to get there. Meanwhile, every single ship here can potentially reach those speeds in less than 5 seconds or less. Thankfully, here's where the number of survivors is much higher. Spaceships that can run at these speeds include Samus's gunship, Fox, Falco, and Wolf's R-Wings, Olimar's rocket, and potentially Bowser and Bowser Jr.'s Koopa Clown cars. Overall, the numbers are much better than simply running. However, while spaceships are generally the transport of choice, there are still plenty of ways to get off the planet. Getting out through other means include Kirby with his Warp Star, Meta Knight and King Dedede who can keep up with said Warp Star, Pit and Dark Pit who can fly out of orbit in seconds, Diddy Kong with his jetpack, Rosalina with her Launch Star, Sonic with going Super, and Ridley who can keep up with said gunship. Hi there, Editing Jeffrey here, realizing I made a big mistake. For the first segment, I had the context in mind that they wouldn't be able to leave Earth, but since Meta Knight and Ridley can easily leave Earth just like this, I messed up. So just add all the people here and put them into running away as well. Bye. While running away and getting off planet are both similar in a lot of ways, there are two primary reasons why it's the better choice. For starters, being in outer space generally means you have a lot more room for more tricky space maneuvers that you can't do on land. And secondly, while running the speed of light is debatable with most characters on foot, every single method is more than capable of traveling the speed of light. Some, like Samus's gunship and Rosalina's Launch Star, can cross galaxies in minutes. So even if you want to highball it, and say that Galeem ended up destroying the entire galaxy, there is still the argument to be made that other characters could have actually escaped. Of course, it's not entirely foolproof, however. Being in space does give you more freedom and get you overall much further away, but if said beams follow you into orbit, you still need to be able to swiftly avoid oncoming attacks. Some characters like the Star Fox team and Pit can avoid these beams for good periods of time, but however, it's potentially the downfall of Olimar and Bowser Jr., as they've both been intercepted by slower moving targets mid-flight. So now we've got both of those options out of the way, that gives us a lot more survivors. Granted, you could make the argument that stuff such as the R-Wing and Rosalina launching were both caught regardless of matching light speed, but you know what? Fine, I'll play ball. Might I suggest?
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Depending on where you teleport, this is probably one of the best options, or probably won't help you at all. A lot of characters can run, and they can hide, but for a majority of characters, they just happen to have a fancy ride instantly taken back to base, or in some cases, places they've been already. All these places again imply of untouched land, but however, unlike the first option where more people can rely on it, when Lucario did it before, the same beam did not seek him, rather a new one, and it's sort of how Kirby got away in the first place. Now, in general, there are 3 different ways on how teleportation can work here. I'm just gonna go with the first one, and that is checkpoints, or bases, if you will. These styles of teleportation have the player go to a place they've already been to, or to their home base to help get away. Characters that can use this method is Mario with Cappy, Link with the Sheikah Slate, Ness with PK Teleport, Young Link with the Song of Soaring, the Pits and Palutena with Skyworld, and Mega Man with Dr. Light's Base. All of which have places in the world which they can travel to freely, and in most cases in near instant, whether they complete a mission or if they need to get home quickly. However, out of all the options for teleporting that I'll mention later, this is probably the most unreliable option. While some of these options could take you all across the world, like Ness's or the Pits, some of them aren't very that far when compared to the others, such as Mario with Cappy or with the Sheikah Slate. And secondly, while in general it's an instant takeaway to another part of the world, it also, oddly enough, takes the most time to set up and to go through than the other teleportation options. And lastly, while the argument could be made that Piranha Plant with the pipe or the Pokemon with their Pokeballs could hide in there for their safety, however, it's shown that with both Inkling and Snake, that disguises and hiding on the ground won't work. But even so, I'd still say this is a pretty reliable option provided on what the circumstances are. In a way, it's a little bit of a high-risk, high-reward setup, and heavily depending on what Galeem decides to do with his beams. But let's say that rule about Lucario and Kirby dodging beams because they teleport out of the way. What if we just throw caution out the window and just go with...
And then I fired again, and then I missed.
Technically speaking, these were two different segments, but in the end, they both do the same task, so I decided to put them together. The second form of teleportation, which is simply teleporting out of the way, and simply dodging the beams once they get close. It's pretty effective. For starters, a lot of characters surprisingly have faster-than-light reaction feats, and secondly, while the characters are fully aware of what will happen, not only does it give them plenty of time to set up an escape route, but also give them plenty of time to quickly get out of the way. This is where the second form of teleportation comes in, quick bursts of speed to quickly move out of the way before it can hit you. This is how Lucario managed to get out of the way of some beams. This is pretty plausible in hindsight. Some of these characters include Meta Knight, Greninja, and Sheik, who can move so fast it seems like they're teleporting, as well as Zelda, Mewtwo, Palutena, and Meta Knight again, who can legitimately teleport short distances. And while he doesn't do this in Smash, Steve can do the same thing with Ender Pearls. Although do keep in mind, this is not a foolproof strategy. The moment you dodge one, another one can easily come out of nowhere to snipe you out. Now moving on to the second portion of the survival, we're going to talk about reactionary light feats. Now keep in mind, running the speed of light is not the same as reacting at the speed of light. While sure, characters like Sonic can outrun the beams for a long time, reactionary feats mean that if you're given the proper time and can probably see it coming, you can quickly deflect or get out of the way before they hit you. Fortunately, there's a lot more options. Take how Mario can pilot the launch star, or Link can deflect Guardian's laser beams. In a way, stuff like that is the type of light speed we need for this list. There's a lot of characters to go through here, so I'll give you a short list of the characters who have done things at the speed of light, or scale to characters that can also do light speed reactions. There's Mario, Link, Kirby, Fox, Luigi, Ness, Bowser, Dr. Mario, Falco, Ganondorf, Mewtwo, Meta Knight, Pit and Dark Pit, Zero Suit Samus, Diddy Kong, Sonic, King Dedede, Wolf, Toon Link, Mega Man, Rosalina, Palutena, Shulk, Bowser Jr., Cloud, Bayonetta, Ridley, Joker, Hero, Sephiroth, and Pyra and Mithra. Long story short, all of them can reach the speed of light in terms of reactionary feats, and can possibly get out of a way of a beam if it comes too close. Now before I wrap up this segment, I do want to give special mention to the Links, who all have the Hylian shield, the only actual shield that managed to block some of the beams off. And also I want to give shout out to Bayonetta and Mega Man, who can both slow down time and stop time altogether. While it won't necessarily guarantee their safety, it will give them time to prepare and move out of the way of the beams, sort of like the teleportation. While this is the most easy option, it's also the least likely option to work, primarily since, well, sure there might be unvacant land, but this land is definitely coming down. And frankly, it's almost inevitable that you will get caught up. So, you know what? How about we go with probably the safest option, the third type of teleportation.
Everyone out of the universe, quick!
One thing I should probably bring up is that Galeem is specifically stated to destroy the universe. I find that kind of a bold claim considering that Earth and the land it was attacked was still present, but in a sense, this method in particular is probably the whole reason why I made this video in the first place, and why I personally believe that other characters can potentially escape. While not as common as teleporting to another place in the world, teleporting to their own dimension or their own personal area is overall the safest option and guarantees you'll survive the World of Light disaster. After all, you don't have to worry about a galaxy, maybe even a universe-ending threat, if you're not even a part of that universe at all. While it is pretty similar to teleporting to your own base, the primary difference is that the first option implies that there is a base on Earth, but however, in this option, is a completely separate plane of existence. Thankfully, with all these characters, they can freely go in and out of these worlds at will, and can stay there until the disaster is past. You won't have to do much manual labor or movement, given the beams specifically target this universe alone, truly the luxury cabin of escape routes. Characters that can escape this way, oddly enough, also live in luxury. There's both Ganondorf and Young Link, who can visit the Sacred Realm, Corrin with his castle in the Astral Plane, Bayonetta with Purgatorio, Sephiroth, who can also hop dimensions, and Joker. He's not royalty, but he can still travel to Mementos for safety. I should also give honorable mentions to Steve, who can make portals to the Nether, but it takes time to both set up and go through. But regardless, this is still your best bet, because even if we highball it and say that the entire universe was destroyed in this, you could still make the argument that they weren't in this universe at all, so I didn't get caught. But regardless, I'd still say this is our safest method. The only other issue I see is that in some cases, you need to go to a certain location, or you need time to set up the portal to get away. But regardless, I still think this is a really good shot on survival. Now, I would have ended this segment here, but I have one last option on people can escaping. It's nothing really they can control, rather, it's how someone else can control the situation. Or, in other words,
come with me if you want to live.
while you could make the argument that someone could just create a portal and then shoo everyone in there, that's not specifically what I'm looking for. So for this case in particular, we're going to look at all the previous methods of escaping and apply them to their friends, see if they can help them out, and if they would help them out. We're looking at relationships in their canon, so two characters in the same scene together probably won't help them out. A good example of a canon dynamic is Palutena and Pit, where Pit needs Palutena in order to access his power of flight. Other examples include Rosalina, Mario, and Luigi, who have the launch stars to get away, Link, who has Zelda, which can help teleport him across the world, Fox and Falco. While they do have their own means of escape, they still work as a team, Kirby, Meta Knight, and King Dedede, who occasionally share a Warp Star ride together. There's also Dark Pit, who can also gain flight with the help of Palutena. Pyra and Mythra, while they are technically one and the same, Pyra could easily switch out to Mythra, who can outrun the beams. While this is a one-person thing, I'm also going to include Sonic with the Chaos Emeralds, as they need to be summoned to him in order to transform into Super Sonic. And finally, depending on who this trainer is, potentially Pokemon Trainer and Mewtwo could teleport out of there. So that's a lot of characters who can work together in order to get out, but another factor to include is that these characters need to be able to help the others out. So unfortunately, while Diddy Kong can reach orbit, he can't do so on Donkey Kong's back, and while Yoshi is a lot faster than regular Mario, he can't outrun the beams himself. And I think this should be said, if one can't escape either way, it pretty much is dead in the water. So, I'm sorry to Ice Climbers and Banjo and Kazooie. And one last thing that should go without saying, they need to be able to help their partners out. So sure, Sephiroth and Ganondorf could open other dimensions, I highly doubt they're gonna leave them open for Cloud or Link. So overall, while it can be debated whether or not you can or cannot rely on this method, it is still an option and does provide that just a few more people could potentially survive. A bit of a sour note to end on, but I'd say this is the true last resort in order to escape. So, that's all 6 primary methods on getting away, all discussed here. While there isn't really a ranking on how likely these characters will survive, here's a small list of characters I think are the most likely to survive. Samus, Kirby, the Star Fox team, Youngling, Ganondorf, Meta Knight, Sonic, Wolf, Rosalina, Bayonetta, Ridley, Joker, and Sephiroth. Bear in mind, this is a theory of course, but in my personal opinion, I'd say that these candidates are the most likely to survive a World of Light situation, and is proof that more than just Kirby could have potentially survived. I know there is a major difference between what works in a script and what characters can do. I just think it's a lot of fun to analyze these characters and put them in a what-if scenario if they had time to prepare or if they actually could survive. But at the end of the day, whether if only just one character survives or an entire roster survives, I'd still say it was a really fun video to make, and it was really interesting looking at all the different kinds of characters and what they can do. So, to close this off, I'm going to give a moment of silence to the remaining characters who have literally no chance of doing any of the 6 options. Bye.